Well, I tell y'all that we got some cars driving on the road in the background. That might be a little reason for the noise we got back there. But as I've demonstrated in the last video, I showed you all with the bear that wasn't finished on both sides yet how we did these two sides. This is the one where I sewed the fronts and backs together in the coffee shop, and it was already done by the time I demonstrated the first steps on the last one, which I did on the last video. But this is a time when I come on just first of all to tell you all that the steps on the other one are quite similar to that of the steps on the first. So I'd say this it is the same for each side. And come now just to do a little demonstration of how we're going to sew up certain other areas. And I think at this point, we're going to come on and kind of make it so we get the face of the teddy bear and kind of stitch a couple of things together right in the front where it needs to be done, and kind of show a little what we call type of work we do. Put the thread through. We're gonna stitch along there, put in a little stitch, make it so it's going to come right in. And so we're going to kind of make the next line here, attach the underside to it, and go through that little place, make one more little knot to go in again. And you can ignore those dogs barking back there. They're another thing, but they're the neighbor's dogs, so don't mind them. I'm just grateful I get to be on here doing this little bit of work. And come to think of it, those dogs, they probably just want a little attention. Sometimes, just sometimes, there's, I think, things people kind of get online and do just to get attention. Dogs have their ways, people have their ways, kittens have their ways. Everything has a way. It's just the work we show in all we have and do. And then just one little stitch goes through here, making the forehead just as simple as it can be, to put the little string through and put the little stitch through, and then come down to where we're going to kind of show a little something as best as it's going to go and to be, and to make us see a little ways that we do certain things in life, and come along and put that through. Got one more little line to make just to go back along and come back, make another single stitch right there in the front where we're going to work along there. And I say that I tell y'all, life is getting easier and more simple for me. I'm getting a little more rested, getting a little bit more over my stresses. So that's kind of how we got this to go to do. I will say that there's just little things where we kind of want to sew in the little backside of the bear. And so it's these two little tabs together that make its legs. So we got a little place there where we got a little line to come in, a little knot to pull through, a little place to make where we got a little work and time and effort, and all we have, all we say, all we do. Oh, I tell y'all, little words have ways of coming back to us, and sometimes, just sometimes, there's so much we kind of find out in life, that we have all these ways we learn to kind of manage our skills and our anger. I've also heard the old parable about how it is when you put nails into a fence and then try to pull them out. One of those things people have kind of tried to teach others to do, and to kind of show them a little bit of how it is, of what anger can do, what anger does. I say that it's been under my watch to kind of learn these things and see these things, and then in my life I've seen how much comes and goes, and so much to figure out as you go along. Do think I'm going to kind of make a different demonstration here. I'll take this other shade of thread here. We use a different shade of thread to sew together the underside because the denim itself is a different shade of blue. You kind of want to make sure you match up the threads with the colors and the shades they go with. So I tell y'all that this is just one thing we've got here to put into the bear and to make it so it's going to be a little sigh of a thing to make into us. And I say that there's been so much interesting things to learn. I made a lot of other creatures before I made this, but there had been a time when I'd been in Starbucks kind of, making all these random creatures, and young lady working in there kind of made a suggestion to me. She tried to suggest that maybe I should try to, maybe make some bears or some bunny rabbits, telling me stories about how it was with her and her grandmother, how her grandmother made little bears and bunny rabbits for her and her sisters. That was just a long, lot of thing that, I hear all these old sentimental tales people tell, and all the things that they share, little experiences in life, and all the little things we learn from what people share and say. And I say there's just so much that changes as generations change, but some people are just as good as the older generation. Some have always been raised different ways by different people, and we know that everybody sees the little things a little differently. There's been times in my life when there's been ways things have been with me. Sometimes I hadn't always understood people in life, and people hadn't always understood me. And sometimes, even in my younger years, I couldn't understand why the generation before me kind of was the way it was. They kind of were the way they were because they hadn't adjusted so much to how the times had changed. And even now, I'm a little older myself and have little problems adjusting to how things have changed a little bit. And it's just kind of one of those things where I just tend to stay busier at home than I used to be, and busier in the gym, because it's like I tell y'all that it's just a time when I feel like things are changing to the point that popularity is changing and things. And even heard yesterday, like I told you all in one of the last videos I recorded, about this conversation I had with the young lady working at McConnell Springs. We talked about these taxidermy things and how these days they're becoming more popular. They're getting sold on Etsy and things like that. So there's little things we have to see and share as far as how that goes and as far as that's concerned. And I say that even for now, there gets to be those moments in my life when I like to save up for things like that. Probably do a little bit less of all this going out for a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or even food from convenience stores or whatever, because it's just probably a great time for me to get to save. So it's just the kind of work that comes in us. We work our ways to what we know and see. Can't wait to kind of get ahead business wise, have so much more to show and to share for what the future holds. And it'll come around to where, in just a few weeks, we're going to be switching from daylight saving time to standard time. And I know that that's really a time change for me and a little adjustment to make, but it kind of gets to be so for most all of America because, I mean, we all agreed to do it and we all do it, and it's just been a thing where ever since a certain time in history, since we've had clocks, America just started to do it because there were times of the year that they kind of wanted it to be daylight a little later, and sometimes I'd say that when it kind of gets to the point where it's daylight a little later, it sometimes daylight might even start an hour later in the morning than it otherwise would. That's why we have our times when every year in the fall I go out to Forks of Elkhorn and Midway and have to set up so early that I go out there when it's pretty dark, and it can be a little bit of a hustle just to try to find your way through all that traffic and find the places to go and ways to stop and places to make turns. So that is just all the more reason I'm just thankful these days for all the map apps we have and all the GPS apps we have that kind of help us along the way. Before I really started learning to use my GPS app on my phone, my Google Maps, it was always a struggle for me to just try to travel around and get from place to place, especially in the dark. And I'd know that one thing we find out for sure is that there's just things we learn, things we know, and we can kind of get a little off track here or there and get off on the wrong place, but Google Maps will always direct you directly back to the right place where you need to be, just to take a different road if you need to get to your destination. And as this time I say, this is how we got the underside sewn up here. There are some little patterns I have where the head and underside are all one piece, and the face and underside are all one piece, that is, and it's all going to be a little work inside to do a little things that we make of what we see and what we do. I say that I'd be happy to work a little more, take care of this better. And I mean, I tell y'all, I mean, my fall break is about to end and I go back to work tomorrow morning. It's just all these ways that all these adventures just change for me over time, and things just come different ways. And I tell y'all, I'm just getting old to the point where can't really enjoy the things I used to. Sometimes I've just got to be grateful that there are some young generation people who are really nice to me, some of them who were raised right and who do respect their elders. That's kind of what we see these days. Sometimes, it can seem a little strange now and then when you come across those things, but I say that there's just a little ways we kind of go about things in life. I've heard different stories, seen different things, heard a lot of news that we never wanted to hear. I even hear tragic things are going on in Israel right now. Haven't kept up with all of it or really listened close enough to know exactly what all it was, but I know it was awful, and seen a Jewish friend post an Instagram story about it, so it was kind of a little thing just to see how that was and how it just went for us, for you and me, and for all of society to that matter, because I tell you all, it's like people's lives were lost in that tragedy, whatever it was that happened. And there's days like this we have to remember in history, and I'd say that there's been a lot of losses take place over years, and how that there's been different religions that have attacked other religions over years, and there's been a lot of wars over the religions and all the things people have done. Some people preached that they were all equal. Others got mad because they thought their religion was the only true one, and takes me all the way back to all this old story I heard about Mahatma Gandhi, how he tried to end a war between his Hindus and Muslims and was shot by a Hindu. There were old stories to come and lives that came along the way. We know that history had its ways with us and history had its ways with people. We know that heroes were all of history, and heroes meant a lot. Some of them, they may not have been people who believed in the same God as me, or in the same religion as me, or in the same beliefs as me, but we know that they made the world a better place for us and for others. And I'd say for themselves as well. It's kind of like how I've heard about how Abraham Lincoln was kind of like Moses. Both set the slaves free, but never entered the promised land. It was kind of some stories that touch our hearts and lives in ways and teach us little valuable things and how it goes. You probably saw here I've got down to the front of the head on this teddy bear, making the rest of the way with it, and seeing how things will be when they come in longer ways. I couldn't wait until the day comes that I could see more YouTube subscribers. I know I probably don't really do exactly everything that interests people the most or that they're most a fan of, but I'd say that there's a lot of things I like to do. Reach out and show little grace now and then, because sometimes, just sometimes, you're going to find somebody who has an interest in what you do. Currently, there's only 27 subscribers to this channel, and I'd say even if it interests that many people enough that they can come on this channel and watch anything or listen to anything, whether it's anything I have to show or anything I have to say, I say that it's just a little blessing in itself just to be able to be reached out to and have a little help from others in our little times. And the times in life when we've gone over places and over things, I say there's just little work we have taken our ways in us. And I say that this is just where this little work has taken us to be. Little times in our lives we're going to be blessed in time to work little miracles and see all these things that shall ever mean something to us. We know that there's all kinds of shapes and sizes for bears to come in, and like this one here, this might be a little blue teddy bear, but I'll tell y'all, I've done things in life like made little sun bears and moon bears and sloth bears for little displays, some of those ones that are out in Asia. One thing I learned, little interesting thing is that there are no bears in Africa. I quite unsure as to whether or not even in prehistoric times there were, or if there were any prehistoric fossils of ones there, but I know for one thing, while there's never been any elephants in the United States, that people have unearthed mammoth fossils here in Kentucky before. And even out on the Blue Lick frontier, to that matter, they found one. I say that brings us all from a little topic here, one to the next, even to the fact that when it came to somebody like George Washington, for example, you know, it was stated around his time that, you know, dinosaur fossils were not discovered until after George Washington died, so he knew nothing about them, didn't know they existed. And we know there's always different discoveries made at different times in life, different times in history, and we're going to see it, how it all unfolds to come make a little place out of us. And oh, a little time and work and generous offer to us is all we really need just to get out and go about little things in our lives to make something out of us and see what we need and make us what God wants us to be. Oh, how happy that would be. Oh, for us to know that God is on our side in all things. For so many years of my life, I'd say He's been on my side so many more ways than I've realized, and been faithful to me in every way, despite how much I might have never known. And this is just one good way that godliness comes to us. You know, there's times when little screen names and little sayings can tell us all different things. Back in my MySpace days, I called myself a reverend on the internet, and some of the stuff I posted on there was not a good testimony for a reverend either. So that was kind of all the more reason I kind of got some of the negative attention I got. That probably told you all in one of my last videos when I was talking about that. And it was just little things when we see how mercy drives us and takes us to where a little place or two will go, has, oh, so much grace to show us in life and in need. I say, oh, this little bear, we're just gonna kind of work away on it, work away on its back. I say that we got to get rid of that little string, and on will come another one. We can kind of take this further if it has further to go, but I'd say it's kind of getting close to sundown, so we might be wrapping this up in a little bit. Surely won't be coming out here to do any more recordings when it starts getting dark a little earlier. This will probably be my first year working in the cafeteria I'm working in, with us going from daylight savings to standard time. And first time I'll be doing it in the winter, first time I'll be doing it in a season that it gets dark early. And oh, I'd say little things we're going to find in life to show us all a little time when we're going to see it's coming down and being brave to us all, I say. And since it's going on time for daylight savings time, I'd never knew my paternal grandfather all that well, but heard a lot of stories about how he was when it came to daylight savings time. Always hated it and always said, we should stay on the Lord's time. You know, there were things where little conservatives had little views that might have even back in those days been a political issue among people. We know there are political issues that still exist today among different folks, and different messages they share, and different ways of living, and different ways of doing government these days. But I've always kind of read a lot of old stories about how it was at the time of the Caesars and the Roman Empire, and the time when it was always just little ways they had showing their grace and mercy to us. And no, not that, but I'm getting my words mixed up. I mean, times when it was kind of evil and cruel, but I mean, just knowing what was said, knowing what was done in those days, I say I get a little blanked out as I talk on, but forgot to mention to you I'm doing the back of the bear now, and sometimes I get over talked when it comes to my ways. I can kind of come a long ways and make little statements that I don't mean, say what's on the top of my head, come on to show how this little bear is making its way along. See what we do here. Not much things I can be quite professional enough at. I mean, art is probably one of those things at which I can, but speaking publicly would not be one of those things, and neither was ever singing or playing an instrument, which was probably among the things I've tried to do in life and tried to be public about. So it changes with each of us over our times and over our days and over our ways. I say that this little time we're going to work our way out through this. Maybe sometime around here, get around to making out the little outside of the teddy bear, and it's going to end up being stuffed. It's going to be turned inside out. We'll have to kind of sew it in a way that we can kind of close the ears and make the ears flat so they don't become 3D from the stuffing, and then just kind of work little ways about this till we make it all the way to the very end, you see. I mean, business is one thing that I have to take care of these days. Thankfully, I got the help I need to go about and do it. There was just sometimes in life when we made little mistakes and saw little things that we didn't understand. Sometimes our choices have consequences and we don't always think of them. We don't always see it right away, but we kind of learn from the choices we make and what we do. Sometimes the little consequence of the mistake we make, whether big or small, can hurt us all in a different way, but we don't really see how it comes along till we know what we do, know what we see, know what we say, and what we hear. I say that this is just the way we're sewing along on this bear. Kind of got to watch the time here, but think I'm about to end pretty soon. Think I'm about ready to be done for the evening. Gotta check the time on my watch. It is, I'd say, maybe getting about there, but I tell y'all, it's like these days, not quite as recreational as I used to be. It was a lot different in my younger years when I was still in my 30s, but I'm in my 40s now, and things are changing to another point, making it so it's going to be a little harder to adjust to how things are going to change more in life. I'm a lot busier. I had a little fine from the Department of Revenue for some taxes paid late. It came to me in the mail yesterday, but the good news is that I got online and got that taken care of and got the payment done. And I say that little things have happened in life where sometimes we fail to notice what we do and what we have or what we thought we did, but I kind of filled it out months ago, but forgot to really click the submit tab. That was what happened, but I'm thankful we got that little thing taken care of, and There's always going to be new lessons to learn in life as we go. Thank you all for coming on here, staying tuned in, watching this video. Hope you'll subscribe if it so interests you, and take care.